Introductions are the first impression in the mind of the examiner, and conclusions are the impact which it creates on the mind of the examiner. And without them, your answer writing is incomplete. Remember, that means is racing against time. And if you do not have ready-made intros and conclusions, you will not be able to think faster without having any context to it. You mindlessly put data, and it becomes so data loaded that the answer becomes irrelevant. Now let us understand the four cliched types of introductions that can be used by the students in their mains answer writing. Similarly, if you could see this question, PPP model, if harnessed properly, has the potential to bridge the gaps in India's healthcare system. Here, the topper has used SDG goal in PPP model, specifically in the healthcare sector. Hello, dear students. So I welcome you all today in a very insightful and useful discussion for the upcoming mains examination. And the topic is how to make use of ready-made introductions and conclusions to improve your marks in mains, to give you that extra edge in the mains answer writing, which will decide your rank as well as your improvement in rank. So many aspirants, know the content, but very few know how to end and begin their answers. In fact, introductions are the first impression in the mind of the examiner, and conclusions are the impact which it creates on the mind of the examiner. And without them, your answer writing is incomplete. Many aspirants fail to understand that if they ignore introductions and conclusion, they are actually not polishing their answers well. They're actually not structuring their answer well, right? And also they are not presenting their answer well. Because the intros and the conclusions are the first thing and the last thing which the examiner sees in the answer, and that really shapes your marks and it really decides your marks. So that's why today I have brought this discussion on how to make this ready-made introduction and conclusions for your mains answer writing. So let's start. So before I venture into making you understand how to make those ready-made intros and conclusions, or the data bank, or the examples, or the reports, let me first give you that perspective where many aspirants are doing mistakes. What actually is making many students lose marks in mains. So most aspirants, as I have already told you, know the content, but due to poor structure, due to lack in your introduction and conclusion, and very generic ones, you are losing out on marks. So the weak opening, the vague conclusions, as well as no value addition in terms of adding any data, any report, any recent context, is actually making your answer writing very shallow, right? So that is what first we have to understand, that these are very, very important components in your mains answer writing to get that edge or to get that extra marks, right? So let me show you one very important objective analysis, that in the top 25 rankers, how the marks vary. And the reason behind the variation in marks is not the content, not the knowledge, but again, answer writing or poor presentation or the weak structure, or probably because of lack of useful data or the examples which they might not have been able to write at that point of time. Remember, that mains is racing against time. And if you do not have ready-made intros and conclusions, you will not be able to think faster, write effective, and present your answers in a structured way. So that is very, very important. So if you could see that the first ranker had scored in GS 474, whereas the 21st ranker has scored 394. And if you could see the difference is close to around 74 to 75 marks, which will not happen or which cannot happen due to lack of knowledge, but lack of points, lack of structuration, as well as weak intros and ineffective conclusions, right? Similarly, if you could see rank 14 and rank 1, again there is a huge difference. So this is what it might lead to if you're not having that, directed effort, you know, with respect to your intros and the conclusions, right? So let's understand where again the students while writing answers may commit mistake or they commit mistakes. So firstly, even if students are, making their ready-made intros and conclusions, but the fixed intros and the conclusions or the standardized intros and conclusions which you are all jotting down on your notes are without any context, without any understanding, and they seem very robotic and mechanical. This also hampers your answer writing and the marks which you may get, because we have to understand that examiner is very mindful, examiner is very knowledgeable. We cannot discredit by befooling him. So it has to be contextual, right? Also, there is this tendency of data overload, because you prepare so much of data that without having any, context to it, you mindlessly put data, and it becomes so data loaded that the answer becomes irrelevant. It seems very mechanical. So here again, the forced value addition signals very poor judgment of the aspirants or the candidate's impression on the mind of the examiner. Next, collecting too many facts without revising them also makes your answer look very bloated, right? So also avoid this while writing answers, right? Also, when you are writing any answer for UPSC mains, the first thing which you should always impress an examiner with is your awareness with respect to current affairs knowledge. And if your current affairs is not updated, what impression would you leave in the mind of the examiner? So here again, stale examples also signal very poor awareness, and they are judging you on the front of that you will be the future civil servant. So here also, this critical intervention is very much required, right? Next, even while using quotations, examples, reports, don't use them mechanically. Use them with some context, with some connect, to make your answers look more relevant, right? So these are the things which you should not do. Now, coming to the building blocks of an answer. So you all are aware, you've all written the examinations even in the college, right, that there are 3 parts to the answer. One is your introduction, then is your body, and then is the conclusion. But let me first bring to your notice the relevance of introduction and conclusion. So the introduction helps the examiner to know the response of the question given. Now, if you are giving him the confidence there and then that you are or you have understood the question, then it is a kind of a smooth sailing for you to get decent marks. And on the very similar pattern, if you see the conclusion, what does the conclusion give a message to the examiner? That the recommendations or the summarization which you have done of the topic or the question asked is what he will leave with an impact, right? So that impactful solution oriented conclusion is also what he is expecting from you, right? Okay? So these are the 2 things which you shouldn't ignore. But how to do this? How to create that ready to use data bank, ready to use introductions and the conclusions, right? So there is not one way of doing this. For different subjects, you have to have different kinds of approaches. First, let me give you that template of how to do this or how to achieve this. Firstly, the intro should have some of the other constitutional reference, data, current context to give a head start, to give that first impression, right? Secondly, your conclusion could have way forward lines, could have SDG goals, could have some human right impact, could have some governance reforms, could have some schemes or initiatives taken by the government to give that message to the examiner that you are solution oriented, right? Then next, you can have in your intro certain datas, certain facts, which can be the opening lines for you, which again reveals to the examiner that this is the extent of the problem, right? Sometimes if we, write like this, that uh, women empowerment is a great issue. By great क्यों है? Why it is great? Or why it is needed in a country like India? When you back it up with some NFHS survey, when you back it up with some, report, then it gives or lends that objectivity which a civil servant is expected to have in its personality, right? So facts, economic survey data, Niti Aayog, NCRB, global reports, they are all curated and they are revisable and are very, very important tools to add impact in your introduction. Similarly, when you have conclusion, right? How do you make that data bank for conclusion? By using some best practices, by using some flagship schemes or interventions done by the government, by giving certain examples which have been replicated or used by states that can be taken up at the national level and vice versa. There can be international or global comparisons. So all of that makes your conclusions or topic or answer writing more visionary. And that is what is required in this data bank, right? Now let us understand the four cliched types of introductions that can be used by the students in their mains answer writing. So one is obviously the definition based introductions. Let's say if there is a question on tropical cyclone, you define it, right? Let's say if there is a question on growth and development, you define what is growth and development, right? So there are certain direct conceptual questions for which you can start your answers with definition. Similarly, if there is any question on polity, governance, justice, ethics, there you can add constitutional provisions. There you can add quotations. There you can make your introductions more ethical and value based, right? This is another way of introducing the answer. Let's say if you have to give any number to the problem, when you have to objectify the problem without giving data, without giving any survey, you will not be able to let the examiner know the magnitude of the problem. The problems or issues kahan hote hain? Usually you get certain kind of issue based questions in economy, issue based questions in society, issue based questions in governance, issue based questions in environment that have to be substantiated with some compelling fact or example or data or report, right? And then finally you have some current context based questions where, even despite of not asking from you that you have to give current context, but if you show it in the form of introduction that why this question has been asked or why this issue is important, by linking it with some recent context or issue, that again opens up to the examiner your personality, that how aware you are, and that is what you have to do. So these are the most cliched ways in which you can introduce your answer. Just let me give you one example, right? So there is this question on referendums, right? So till the time a cliched, introduction can be of this question where you define referendum, right? So referendums are portrayed as popular governance in its purest form. However, it is also argued that they often subvert democracy rather than serve it, examined in the light of recent developments across the globe. Now, because this question is on referendum and how it is portrayed as a popular governance in its purest form, till the time you don't define referendum, you will not be able to open the layer of how it is a tool of popular governance, right? So yes, this is very much justified where you start your introduction with defining what is referendum. Similarly, even if someone starts with recent developments across the globe where referendums have been used, that could also be a very good way to start your introduction, right? Now I'm showing you certain answer copies of the toppers who have used certain kinds of introductions which we have talked about, right? So for example, there is this question on regions impacted by desertification in India. Now, instead of defining what is desertification or impact of desertification, the topper has started his answer with, as per the State of our Environment Report 2017, 8 states of India are having large areas of their land suffering from desertification. Now, this is what I was trying to talk about, that there will be a question on the issue, there will be a question on the problem, but till the time you don't magnify it through numbers, you don't objectify it, it would be a very generic introduction. So this is a perfect example of how you bring to the light the problem or issue or extent of desertification in your introduction in itself. Now this will give a very clear message to the examiner that you are aware about the problem or the severity of the problem, right? Or conclusion kya hoga? The required steps taken to meet this challenge, right? Similarly, if you see this question, examine the persisting issues related to fiscal stability of states in India. What measures are needed to address these issues? Again, the topper has quoted Niti Aayog's report and has highlighted this fiscal stability of states and the issues related to it through that report. Again, this opens up in the mind of the examiner that how aware you are of the current ongoings or the issues. Now this requires preparation, and that is what we will talk about in the next session, right, as to how we need to do this and go about it. Similarly, just see, examine the link between the recent locust attack and climate change. Here again, the recent eruption of the locust attack is given by the topper, right? So this is how you are going to understand it, right? Okay. Next, now, what are the cliched closing lines or conclusions that should end your answers with some impact, right? Now, the way forward type of conclusions. Way forward type of conclusions are those conclusions which are suggesting certain actionable steps for the policy or the reform to happen. Very much required for any aspiring civil servant to have this in their mains answer writing to get that edge in their marks or ranks. Similarly, there is another element which should be seen in the form of conclusion, and that is inclusive development. We all know that India is a country where people belong to different faiths, religion, problems, issues, right? Until the time we don't take all the people and their issues together, we can never target inclusive development, right? So this is what again should be seen while concluding your answers, that no one is left behind while framing the laws. Even the government does not do that by having different kinds of policies, by different kinds of initiatives and schemes to target the people, right? Next, any kind of governance reform. So yes, there are certain deficiencies, yes, there are certain loopholes, yes, there are certain gaps, but a good civil services aspirant is one who is also having this thing in his answer writing while concluding the answers, that what suggestions, what reforms certain commissions, certain committees have highlighted, and that also is a very important way to end their answers. So certain important reports like second ARC, Sarkaria Commission, Punchi Commission, all of that can be prepared topic wise to end your answers. Similarly, constitutional essence or importance that can be given in the conclusions, that also adds those extra marks or edge in your answer writing. Sustainable development goals, very, very important. I'll give you the example using the sustainable development goals, that these are the goals which can be fit in every broad topic of your mains, right? So these are the lens on the issue, not only with respect to climate, but also women empowerment, also economic growth, inclusive development, etc., right? And we will be seeing and how this can be done, right? Balanced reform. Obviously, till the time you don't display that balanced approach in your answers, again, your answers or your personality will not be reflected in your answers, right? In fact, if I must tell you this, So how is the paper checker checking your answer? Not only on the basis of content, but also on the basis of intent, on the basis of how you are seeing reform in the Indian society as well as in the Indian issues, is what also he is checking while seeing your conclusions. That is why I started with this topic, that introductions are the ones which are attracting the examiner's eye, but conclusions are the ones which are creating that impact in the mind of the examiner about you. So you can't take your conclusions lightly also, right? Now let me give you example of the conclusions, how toppers have concluded their answers. So, for example, there is a question on the contribution of Raja Ram Mohan Nohar Lohia during the Indian freedom struggle and post-Indian independence. So, Ram Manohar Lohia was an important voice of social justice and equality throughout his life. So, this social justice and equality are the values which he had upheld. That is what has been reflected by the student, right, or the topper. Why this is also important? Because these are the core values which he upheld. So sometimes questions like these which are contribution based, right, here you have to highlight the most important quality which they have displayed. Similarly, if you could see this question, major legacies of the Indian freedom movement, civil liberties formed an important one, analyzed. Here, the topper has highlighted how the welfare of citizens through education, health, how the freedom struggle has been notable to ensure civil liberties by ensuring basic constitutional human development values that culminated in the Indian constitution in the future, right? So again, this is revealing to the examiner that how the student or the topper, has linked the freedom struggle with the future constitutional value, right? So how the freedom struggle, took the shape of the demand to have or to give it to the Indians to make their own constitution, that has helped us to shape how the constitution of today looks like. So this is again a kind of an insight which you can take in few of the questions. Similarly, if you could see this question, PPP model, if harnessed properly, has the potential to bridge the gaps in India's healthcare system. Here, the topper has used SDG goal in PPP model, specifically in the healthcare sector, right? So this is what we are going to learn through the conclusions, how the recent context like Panchamrit in environmentalism wala question could be used, right? How in a manual scavenging question the aspirant or the topper has used the initiatives or the safeguards which could have been used in this answer, right? So all of that is what we will make sense of while discussing all of this, right? Now, how much data is relevant? How much data is relevant data? How much data is less data? And how much data is more data? What I mean by this is how much content you have to prepare, how much facts you have to prepare, how much data you have to prepare, how many reports you have to prepare, right? So if you break your mains topics, these are the topics which are requiring certain reports, certain data to be backed or could have been used or could be used for your intros or the conclusion. For example, economy. When it comes to economics paper, you need to have idea about the data, extent or numbers with respect to growth, development, inflation, unemployment, employment, agriculture. You need to have those broad figures with you. Similarly, when you talk about society, you need to have certain kind of data with respect to women status overall in health, education, empowerment, right? Gini coefficient, education, vulnerable group metrics, all of that requires data to be substantiated, without which your answers will look very generic. Similarly, when you talk about environment, you need to have those facts on climate change. You need to have the conventions or the protocols that have been in place or that have been taken place in the recent times, which can be included in the answer writing. Similarly, when comes to governance questions, you need to have certain kind of data like Niti Aayog's report or the schemes assessment or the issues which the schemes have highlighted or how the schemes could have been improved, right? The e-governance metrics, the grievance redressal time frames, social audit frequencies, all of this are very, very important aspects of your mains answer writing, specifically when it comes to marks improvement, right? You will get this edge of increasing your marks only when you have certain ready-made datas on these data points, right? So don't focus more on quantity, focus more on quality, and how through minimum effort you can maximize your performance. Just let me give you an example by showing you a topic on women empowerment and how a one topic can have different kinds of data banks. For example, the intro can be linked to constitutional equality, constitutional provisions. The intro can include certain SDG goals like SDG 5. The intro can highlight the importance of women role as a development multiplier, right? Similarly, data with respect to women's labor force participation, like periodic labor force survey, NFHS, maternal and health indicators can show how much empowered women are in India. Certain examples like SHG models, Lakpati Didi scheme, women in local governance, their participation, women in STEM, all of that are those important data banks, examples which highlight or which gives that edge in your marks, right? Next, conclusion could be like this, that women empowerment is not only a welfare issue, but a development multiplier, right? So when you highlight like this, right, your answers automatically becomes marks catching, right? And this is what you have to strive for. Let me give you a template of how one SDG goal or SDG as a topic can be linked to various topics of your mains subjects and how. For example, when you talk about peace, justice, and strong institutions, the transparency, the accountability which needs to be there in the governance, you can use SDG goal number 16. So you can use this for governance, you can use it for judiciary, you can use it for transparency, corruption, internal security, democracy, civil services, citizen-centric governance, and how here by taking the cue of SDG 16, you can make a ready-made intro. If any question comes on these topics, you can start like this. Strong institutions form the backbone of inclusive and accountable governance as reflected in SDG 16. Similarly, a ready-made conclusion can be made by using SDG 16 on these topics like institutional transparency, rule of law, and participatory governance remain essential for achieving SDG 16. So this is what you have to do by using SDGs to make certain ready-made introductions and conclusions for topics like these. For example, SDG 10 targets reducing inequalities. Inequalities in social justice, reservation, poverty, regional disparity, urban-rural divide, gender issue, digital divide, all of these topics have inequality as an issue. So you can start your intro like this. If these topics come by linking SDG 10, inclusive development requires reducing structural inequalities in society, which is a core objective of SDG 10. Similarly, the conclusion can be bridging socio-economic disparities is essential for achieving equitable and sustainable development. Similarly, there is this gender equality which is targeted in SDG 5, right? Whether gender inequality in education, health, nutrition, governance, representation, empowerment, SDGs, you can make a ready-made intro like this. Gender equality is not merely a social goal, but a developmental imperative recognized under SDG 5, right? When you highlight these words, developmental imperative rather than a social goal, automatically the examiner understands the kind of, excellence or intelligence you are having about that topic, right? Similarly, conclusion, which is more reformative, solution oriented, women led development remains central to achieving inclusive and sustainable growth, right? Similarly, when it comes to climate change, environment, disaster management, urbanization, pollution, water crisis, you can use SDG 13. Intro, climate resilience has become integral to developmental planning in the era of global warming. Similarly, conclusion can be like this: balancing ecological sustainability with developmental needs is essential for achieving SDG 13. Right? So, this is how you are going to make your own notes for mains answer writing. Right? By using certain cues like this, you can make notes like this. You can make universal conclusions like this, that achieving sustainable inclusion and equitable development requires balancing economic growth with social justice, environmental sustainability, and institutional accountability in line with the broader vision of the SDGs. When you highlight all the layers of SDG in one, whether the topic is on equitable development, sustainable or inclusive growth, social justice, environmental sustainability, institutional accountability, in every question or relating to these topics, you can end your answer with SDGs, right? So this is one thing which you can use. Similarly, another example or demo, if I would like to give you to all, specifically those who are targeting mains this year or in near future, you can use broad topics and latest data and make your notes like this. For example, there can be this template where women, health, nutrition, they are all targeted by using NFHS latest data, right? So you can write at one page how has been the total fertility rate, how has been the institutional births, how many have been, what is the status of nutrition, right? Women with banks, right? All of that you can get it from NFHS or Ministry of Health and Family Welfare or PIB, right? So for such things, this can come handy. Similarly, when you talk about employment, economy, and gender, periodic labor force survey comes very handy to you. Certain data points like these can be made beforehand so that you are not having that introduction or conclusion fatigue. The time which you spend in introductions and thinking about how to end will be saved by using such tools, and that is what is very, very important, to get that extra time for thinking and presenting your answers in a most effective way. Similarly, when it comes to poverty and inclusion, Niti Aayog data, multidimensional poverty index report becomes very, very important, right? So on these lines, you are going to prepare certain data banks which are there with you before your upcoming mains examination, to give you that edge, to give you that confidence, right? Similarly, you can make theme wise data also, right? For example, women empowerment, you can use the data points like LFPR, women bank accounts, nutrition status. Then you can have this kind of a, flow chart also in your notes, that what does it show? It shows the rising participation, it shows financial inclusion, but it still also shows that health challenges persist despite female LFPR being 41.7%, despite women bank accounts being 78.6%, anemia among women is 57%. So that shows that kind of, thinking which is there in your answers, right? Similarly, a sample conclusion can be, that is why, because of this, women-led development must go beyond the access to assets and focus on health, safety, skilling, and dignified employment. When you connect your intro with data to the, thinking or the vision, then only it creates that sync in answer writing, and that is what again shows or reflects maturity to the examiner in your answer writing. See, it is very easy to write, but it is very difficult to write useful and meaningful, and you have to strive for meaningful and useful answers rather than very generic introductions and conclusions, right? On the similar lines, let me give you another example. For example, governance and federalism. SDG score improved to 71, state scores range between 57 to 79. This shows that India is progressing on SDGs, but interstate variation is high. So for that, development outcomes increasingly depend on last mile governance and state capacity. Now, what a beautiful way to start and end your answer in a sync by revealing where is the gap between India's national development goals and the state's performance. And this is what you are going to have in your answers. So universal conclusion can be India's development approach must move from scheme-based delivery to outcome-based governance, where health, nutrition, education, employment, and institutional capacity are treated as interconnected pillars of inclusive growth, right? So this is again some of the things which you should strive and have in your notes before your mains. Now let me give you certain ideas very quickly with respect to subject wise value additions, right? So polity does have this constitutional provision which has to be seen in your answers. Similarly, economics nature is such that you have to have some data points, some statistics in your answers. Geography without maps and diagrams looks very shallow and plain. History without relevant facts and facts timeline, it again looks very shallow and plain. Environment without mention of recent protocols, international conventions, commitments and targets, it looks very, very blank, right? So let me give you certain kinds of example for each subject, how you can improve in the meantime. For example, art and culture. You should have certain examples ready-made region-wise. Draw a map or a flowchart to show how much diverse culture you know about India, right? Similarly, what is the significance of preserving cultural traditions in modern times? Where is the continuity coming from where to when? And from till what extent? This is again is what is to be reflected in your art and culture questions. Comparison of contemporaries. Here you can add some brief explanation of the contemporary rulers, if there is any comparison. So let's say if there's a question on comparison of Mauryan centralized administration versus Gupta's decentralization. So here you should come up with certain kind of relative or comparative points, right? Then in history also, you can add some flowcharts, you can add some maps to enhance your answer writing presentation. Just to give you an example, there was this question in 2025 means, discuss the salient features of the Harappan architecture. Now the question is very, very simple. Discuss the features of the Harappan architecture. Now the question is on the theme Harappan architecture, right? So one way of introducing your answer could be to highlight the innovative structural engineering in Harappan architecture, and that was urban planning or the town planning or the uniform planning, right? You can also highlight or introduce your answer by comparing with contemporary civilizations. How Harappan civilization was again a remarkable civilization which had its own engineering and indigenous architecture, by comparing it with Mesopotamian or Egyptian and likewise, right? Now this reveals to the examiner that how well read you are, rather than starting your answer with Harappan civilization or Harappan architecture, right? So for example, the Harappan civilization, also known as Indus Valley, is the first urban culture of India and is contemporary to other ancient civilizations of the world, such as those of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and it showcases urban planning with architectural sophistication. Now, this is how you reveal to the examiner how well informed, how well ready, how well prepared you are to write the answers and to express your knowledge, right? Harappan civilization showcased the most exemplary example of urban architecture, which was indigenous, utilitarian, and based on modern engineering in ancient times, which we have still been using in modern day times. That shows the continuity of Harappan architecture till today. Conclusions could be, because of the architecture, structural engineering, water management techniques, in 2021, Dholavira was declared as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Now, this is displaying to the examiner that because the Harappan architecture was unique, modern, way ahead of its time, till date, we are recognizing that through UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? In modern times as well, the Harappan architecture provided inputs to urban and town planning, for example, grid system of lanes seen in Chandigarh, Jaipur, which are planned cities. That again connects to the examiner, that how in today's time you are linking with the planned city model with the urban planning model of Harappan times. Now this is how you increase your marks, right? On the similar manner, let's take another example. 2025 question, main aspects of Akbar's religious syncretism, right? So introduction could be that Akbar ruled a vast multi-religious empire. Because the question is on religious syncretism, you have to reveal, you have to show to the examiner that you are understanding that why have you asked this question. Because Akbar was ruling a vast multi-religious empire, and he expanded the Mughal power across North India, and he realized that the rule required harmony across Hindus, Muslims, Jains, Zoroastrian, and that's why religious syncretism became the core of Akbar's policy. Another example could be Akbar's reign timeline marked an era of composite and liberal outlook towards different religions, and that led to religious syncretism. Now, this is what you call as a perfect example of contextual, relevant introduction, right? So, these are the ways in which you start your answer, right? Similarly, if you could see here in history questions, you can also introduce your answers with a map, right? Like this. If there is a question on theatrical performances or theatrical art, drama, you can draw a map and show different theatrical performances, right? For ancient and medieval history, dynasties, their timeline, personalities, their contribution for modern Indian history, causes and impact. Reason-based questions are asked in modern post-Indian independence history. Geographical factors, all of that becomes very, very important in answer writing. So again, when you are doing this, you have to make certain ready-made introductions and conclusions dynasty-wise, right? When it comes to means, freedom struggle-wise. When it comes to means, ideologically wise. If there is a question on Gandhian phase, there should be some ready-made introduction and conclusion. So likewise, you target this, right? Okay. Just to give you an example, what can be the template for introductions for ancient, medieval, modern? Establish the link between the patron and the art form. Understand why and how the nature or the ruler shaped the policies. What was the condition? What was the scenario? What was the background? World Heritage Sites. Great social reformers and how their legacy still continues. What has been their contributions from different parts of the world or as well as India. Their philosophy, which can be linked with ethics. The relevance of the time period becomes very, very important in history answers, and the current affairs. Any recent news which has inspired or which has come that has made the examiner frame a question becomes very important. Similarly, when it comes to post-Indian independence history and modern Indian history, you have to have certain kinds of chronology of events, background, reasons, and impact, personalities and their contribution, nature of the movement, authors and their work, to give more useful examples to get those extra marks, right? Similarly, just to give you an example, let's say if this is the question, Revolt of 1857 was the culmination of the recurrent big and small local rebellions that had occurred in the preceding 100 years of the British rule. So the culmination of big and small local rebellions has happened not because of one reason, but multiple reasons. So you show in the form of infographic or a flowchart the multiple reasons behind the rebellions to happen from 1757 to 1857. Economic reasons, social reasons, administrative reasons, right? When you show that kind of a flowchart, that again gives a message to the examiner that you have understood the question, and that is what is going to come forward in the body part. Because introductions should also or can be also seen in a way what would be written in the next forthcoming paragraphs that can help the examiner to give you marks little faster. You have to ease off his work also while he is evaluating your answers, right? Similarly, when you talk about Indian society, try to cover the social, economic, political, religious, cultural, environmental, impact that is seen of any social phenomenon. Again, here flowcharts could be used in introduction. Again, here data points, facts could be used, relevant examples, case studies, any role model that can be used. Understand the whys and hows, the critical analysis of the recent trends or the changing forms of society, marriage, relationship. That is what they are asking, right? Just to give you an example, if the question is this, explain why suicide among Indian women is increasing in Indian society, start your answer with the number of suicides increasing. Then only you give that kind of objective value to the examiner that you know the figures, you know the facts. Now you're going to tell the reasons behind it and the challenges, as well as what solutions could be suggested to reduce this. That's how a cliched and the most effective way of answer writing could be done, which can gain you marks, right? Similarly, if there is a question like this, do you agree that regionalism in India is appears to be a consequence of rising cultural assertiveness? Now here, in this, you have to show certain kind of examples in the introduction only, by giving any recent example of how regionalism and cultural assertiveness cases have been seen in different parts of the region. That again gives a message to the examiner you've understood the question, because the question is not direct. The keywords which are used in the question are tricky, right? So the opening intro can give a message to the examiner, okay, acha ye incident you have written, so that's why you make sense of what the question is talking about, right? So that is how you achieve this. Similarly, when you talk about geography, here again in the intros, maps, diagrams, concepts, definition. In the conclusions, you can highlight the environmental issues, concerns, and the solution towards it, right? So this can be used for your ready-made introductions and conclusion on different geographical problems. For example, if there is a question on mention the significance of straits and isthmus in international trade. Now just see the nature of the questions of geography changing. There is an interlinkage of geography with IR, right? So international trade and the significance of straits and isthmus, right? So this is what you are going to highlight by either giving a recent example, the relation between international trade and significance of straits. The Strait of Hormuz important hai, Gulf is important, right? So highlight that. Any conflict zone could also be highlighted, how it has impacted the world trade overall, right? That can be a very useful and impactful introduction to your geography answers. So certain things which you can link with current affairs, prepare them beforehand, can help you really achieve at a very faster pace, marks which otherwise the UPSC examiner is holding, right? Okay, so this is what you can do. For example, discuss why the Bay of Bengal is more prone to cyclones than the Arabian Sea. Also explain the reasons for the decline in frequency of tropical cyclones during the southwest monsoon season. So how the topper has introduced, about 75% of India's coastline is prone to cyclones, with 10% of world cyclone concentrated in India with higher frequency in Bay of Bengal. Now this is what I'm telling you. Pick disasters, pick issues, pick topics which have been asked by UPSC and make your ready-made data bank on them, right? That will help to get that head start, or you will not be having that apprehension or hitch that how do I start the answer, right? Okay, so this is what you can do. Now, with respect to polity and governance, include the dimensions of law, include the concepts, their definition, connect with fundamental rights, DPSP, fundamental duties in the introduction. Another way of introducing your polity and governance answers could be preparing certain international law or human rights, right? And link it with present day Indian laws, right? This can also help you in either concluding or writing introductions. Similarly, important Supreme Court judgments cannot be ignored while writing either introductions or conclusions in polity and governance answers. Similarly, any example, case study, any incident can also help you to start your answer. So these are again those cliched ways in which you write your polity answers. For example, let's take up this question. PPP model, if harnessed properly, has the potential to bridge the gaps in India's healthcare system. So PPP models are generating popularity since last 2 decades. A flowchart is made. How public sector, how private sector are coming together and making this public-private model working, right? Some positives of public sector, some positives of private sector to show how this sync is there. This is again one of the best ways to write less and show more in your introductions, right? Okay, so this is what you will do. Now coming to international relations. In international relations, again what you can do is that you can analyze certain relations in the context of India. Any recent visit, just say for example, very recently our Indian Prime Minister has gone to Norway, right? It's been 43 years that no Indian Prime Minister has gone there, right? Why did he go? Why this sudden shift in Arctic, right? So India, despite not being the Arctic region or a country, yet a very important Arctic stakeholder, right? So that is what you have to do. That despite of not having direct relation with India, right, and international countries, how India still through its diplomacy, certain countries become important, right? Mention certain key policies, theories, ideas. There are certain keywords which are very, very important in IR questions, specifically in the intros and the conclusion, like look east policy, right? Diplomacy, soft diplomacy. There are certain keywords which have to be there in the answers, and that is what you have to strive for. Draw maps, views of diplomats, heads of states, any cultural visit, any recent exchange, any trade treaty, anything that can be written or mentioned which has to do with current affairs can really fetch you good marks in intros and conclusions, right? Just to give you an example, now this question is on line of actual control, right? Now just see how the topper has written the introduction. The border skirmishes between India and China have had long history. So through a flowchart, the topper has highlighted the conflicts between India and China border, like Indo-China War, Doklam issue, Galwan crisis, Tawang crisis, right? So this is how you are again going to write effectively by using less words. Certain, figures like these could also be helpful in gaining more marks, right? Now coming to economics, without using any data, without using any survey mention, without using any graphs or charts, without in your conclusions any socio-economic long-term impact, your conclusions and introductions would be very weak. So here again, you have a lot of scope to prepare beforehand on macro topics like employment, growth, inflation, right? MSMEs, industrial growth, all of that could be, handled very sensibly before your mains answer writing, right? So this is with respect to your economics. Now, coming to environment and disaster management, latest domestic and international policies and conventions will always be rewarding in your mains answer writing, specifically as part of your intros and conclusions. Achievements made under them, targets met, diagrams in disaster management, flow charts, mind maps, all of that will help the examiner to read the content faster, which will induce him to give you more marks, right? Now, coming to for those who already know the basics. So there are many students who are watching this discussion who have had the experience of writing mains, who might be the already rank holders. Now what to do? How to gain those extra marks? Bring more dimensions, bring more diversity, use AI, use PYQs and peer groups to enhance your answers. Get your answers evaluated from different kinds of examiners, get different perspectives, specifically in essay and ethics. So essay and ethics are those two subjects in your mains which can have variations in marks in different years. So here I would like to suggest that come to a common ground. Try to practice answer writing in such a way that you're not getting extremes, even if it is getting checked by different kinds of evaluators. So that skill has to be honed in answer writing, specifically when it comes to essay and ethics, right? Make more useful notes the way I have shown you with the template. Improve your speed, write less, show more, improve your presentation skills, improve on your maps, improve on your drawings, improve on your highlighting, improve on your flow charts. That will help you to get that edge in your mains answer writing. Like for that maps, you can have such kind of practice done, right? For comparison or relationship, use certain mind maps or flow charts like this, right? That'll see. First thing I would like to tell you to just bust the myth that if you are thinking that the examiner is with checking with the intention of you filling the 20 pages, no, but you writing very useful and relevant content is what matters to him, right? So make use of certain flowcharts, make use of certain kind of relationship diagrams like this to show the interconnectedness within different organs, different issues, so that with very less words you are conveying more, right? This is what they are looking for in the answer, like this, right? Like FAO delineates various dimensions of food security that goes beyond calorie intake propositions and has components of food availability, food accessibility, food affordability, as well as food nutrition. Very beautiful way of introducing your answer in less words and is making it very impactful. Similarly, like this, you can, display your body part of your answer also in a very effective way by showing certain schemes, shortcomings, positives, right? So this is what you are going to do. This is a kind of a circular relationship which you can show in your, again, introductions or conclusions, right? So this is again a topper's copy where certain, part of your answer could be written like this. I suggest that this can be done for your introduction as the first part also, right? If the question is very direct, factors affecting mental well-being, you can directly start with this, or by one line, by highlighting the report or a data or any recent context, and start your answer like this, right? Now, how to achieve this? Whatever we had discussed, how to do it. See, it is very, very important that we are understanding that we have to make very judicious and useful use of the time and the day which we have, right? Right after your prelims, don't jump into collecting data. Don't jump into going from here to there by collecting facts. Don't make your notes bloated. Make your notes useful and relevant to the answers, and how to achieve that. Pick one topic per day. Let's say nutrition, right? So nutrition could be divided with respect to women, children, elderly, and make your introductions or conclusions related with SDG, with any NFHS data, with any Niti Aayog report, or with any multidimensional poverty index. Use such things and create one topic. This should be your daily habit. And by the time mains would come, you will be having very useful and less number of notes, very crisp notes and ready-made intros and the conclusions. Similarly, when you are doing this daily, also make a habit of weekly revising that, because till the time you are not revising and making it use in your answer writing, it makes no sense and effort will go in vain, right? So revise your data bank every week, update as and when you are reading current affairs, and as and when newly released reports are coming, include them in your notes, right? Use the data bank for the answer writing. Make it useful so that you are able to assess your speed, you are able to assess your quality, as well as you are improving your marks there and then, right? Next, last but not the least, if you do this, you get that required exam confidence, which is very, very important to have when you are preparing and appearing for UPSC, right? In the last, I would like to sum it up by saying that the examiner is taking the impression of your intro, and for your conclusions, he is taking the impact of your personality. Make it relevant through your answer writing. Write smartly, write less, write efficiently by using the data bank, because there is a very valid and apt quotation which has been mentioned or said by Benjamin Franklin. Either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. That is the most appropriate way to sum it up, that how important it is to very scientifically, very effectively use content, your thoughts, your ideas while writing your mains. And that is why this discussion, how to create that edge in your mains answer writing by having ready-made useful data points, intros and conclusion. So all the very best.